All right. So this is our first episode since the 18th of February this year. And coming in on a strong note, we've sort of changed up a thing too a little bit. It's going to be you and me this season, Brendan, which is fine by me. We're doing well. We're going to be breaking the show up into segments. So we've already decided we want to discuss certain topics over the course of the season. So the first quarter of our season is going to consist of media. And in media, we will be branching off our first episode today into music.
Without any further ado, I am Brendan Nell.
And I'm Llewellyn. This is Finding Borders. I'm telling you.
What's up, man? How have you been?
I've just been livid, man. Absolutely going all out. How about you? I've been spewing just to make an episode. It's been a while.
Yeah, man. I think it's been pretty busy at both ends. I think we all have our responsibilities and duties. I think we've been busy with, for me as well, studying. I know you were studying and working. But yeah, man, I've been partying as well. You have to, just to take the edge off every now and again. But yeah, I'm excited to hop into it. Right back, Finding Borders Season 3. It's happening now. I'm excited, man. What are your thoughts?
Season 3, tell me about it, man. I just remember launching Season 1 the other day. We are obviously in this new season, and we're going to discuss, we had a massive discussion about the kind of content we want to put out this season. So what we're actually going to do is we'll break this season up a little bit. We're going to have some topics of discussion for a few weeks at a time, and then we'll just go from there, So this week in particular, I think you and I already decided on the topic that we want to discuss. Is that correct?
Yes, we decided to discuss a bit of media along the lines of music today, but definitely I think we're going to branch out eventually into some films, even just different forms of media. I think it's a topic that gives endless points of conversation, and I think we can literally go on about hours. But speaking about music, man, is there a specific album that came out of late you're listening a lot to these days, or?
Hey, man, the only thing I've been going on about nowadays is definitely Machine Gun Kelly's new album, Mainstream Sellout. I absolutely cannot get enough of some of his songs, like Paper Cuts. I can't get enough of A with Lil Wayne.
Paper Cuts, yes.
Yeah. Make Up Sex, Emo Girl.
Hey!
Can't begin to explain. One of the best people that Bad Boy Records could have signed on was Machine Gun Kelly, man. He's changed his whole persona up so much.
Absolutely. I think he changed genres a couple of times, actually found his sweet spot. Because I've been quite a big fan, one of the first albums I was really crazy about, which I started to like the style, was Hotel Diablo, which I think was great. Actually, if you didn't know, did you know he actually released a comic book the other day, actually titled Hotel Diablo, with a couple of gnarly short stories? It's actually quite interesting, it was a nice just a nice memory, or just as a visit back to the album, as there was some great tracks there. I mean, something I really enjoyed about Machine Gun Kelly was, do you remember the Downfall's High music video he made for his previous album, Tickets to My Downfall?
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. I think the music video was about an hour or something long. It just basically was he compiled all of these songs on the album into a movie type of format. It was something very new and unique to me, and that's probably one of the most watched YouTube videos for myself on my watch list. On a weekend starts, I start by watching that video and I drink a beer, maybe I smoke a cigarette or so, but it's so awesome for me. Do you think he'll do something similar with Mainstream Sellout in the future?
Oh, look, man, I think he's definitely, like you say, he's hit his sweet spot. His voice, like I agree with Hotel Diablo, like the song he had on their Glass House, and even his previous rap albums. He definitely, he's got a unique voice, but he's just further illustrated his emotion with his blend of rock and hip hop. Like he definitely suits this punk rock sort of vibe. Like, you know, Tickets to My Downfall was definitely a change up for him, and I think a lot of people weren't happy with the change, and he addresses that in the title song of Mainstream Sellout, where he says, you know, leave the scene, you're ruining it. So like I definitely think that if he were to, you know, continue even these hybrids on the Mainstream Sellout, where he's had hip hop mixed in with his rock, I think he could definitely pursue that, because he's a rapper. He's good at rapping, but if he can still play the instruments and hit the right chords as he's going, I think he would have a very successful career in what he's doing. I mean, 20 million Spotify listeners every month as of, you know, April this year. Like that's not, if you think about it.
And I think this is the second album that's hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Yeah, it's been, and that's from a guy. I read today his real name's actually Cassie Colson Baker. I made the bold decision to move over to Spotify from Apple Music because I wasn't satisfied with the content on Apple Music. Like, I'm happy with what they've presented, but they didn't have a lot of artists that I enjoyed listening to on Apple Music. So I moved over to Spotify because I had friends who have Spotify, and I've looked up albums on Spotify that aren't even on, you know, Apple Music, and they're there. So I finally made the snap decision at the, you know, start of last month to get Spotify, and I've been moving music over. And yeah, Machine Gun Kelly is definitely one of the first albums like I thoroughly listened to as I moved over to Spotify. Even with the whole music scene, you know, like Machine Gun Kelly quite often seems to have these themes in his music where he's in a lot of pain or he's suffering. And one thing I want to address is one of his songs on Tickets to My Downfall is called Play This When I'm Gone. And some controversial point that I want to bring up is posthumous music production. So that's when music gets released after an artist has passed away, because they might have had the actual tapes in the studio that never got released. In recent memory, something that might have started this trend for posthumous music was actually when Michael Jackson passed in 2009. He still had an album released shortly after his passing, and they even had Justin Timberlake on that album. So
yeah,
following that, and this is just the music I'm interested in, in 2018, Jimi Hendrix had a whole new album released.
Really? I didn't even know that. I'm quite the big Jimi Hendrix fan.
He just had a brand spanking new album released, and I didn't know that either. Like, I ended up going on Spotify, and because I heard one of the songs on the album was called Lover Man. Songs are titled Love. Bold as Love, Send My Love to Linda. So I'm like, oh, I'm never ever gonna find this damn song. Anyways, found the song, found the album, and the album is called Both Sides of the Sky, and it was released in 2018. And then I think the most famous one, or the famous ones of posthumous music, is either XXXTentacion and Juice WRLD. So those two artists have been dropping songs well and truly after their death. You get to a point where you're like, because with record labels, they actually own the right to the music. So it's essentially you exchanging your voice and your talent for their distribution and their resources to get you on the map. So you can't even decide what songs you want to play at which openings or at which concerts or in what order you want to play them. You have to literally negotiate with your record label on those sort of things. A very, very famous case of someone putting their foot down for their record label is Taylor Swift. So surprising, isn't it? I mean,
I wouldn't figure her as the rebel kind of artist, you would think.
yeah, like she ended up going ahead, and she was, from what I remember, she wanted to buy into her record label, or she wanted to, yeah, purchase it to own the rights to her music, and she ended up getting undermined, and another company, another group.
Did she just shake it off then?
they, they ended up, yeah, buying it from underneath her. So she just re-recorded with another independent label. She just re-recorded 2 of her albums, and obviously titled them Taylor's versions, or Taylor Swift's versions. And a few people have been, like iHeartRadio, have been swapping out some of their old versions of Taylor Swift songs on those albums for the new re-recorded versions, and it was all well received in the media. Like it was a critically important moment for artists that she set. This is funny what I'm about to mention. Like, I know Motley Crue back in the 90s or 2000s bought the rights to their own music. And what's funny is Machine Gun Kelly plays the drummer for Motley Crue in The Dirt.
Yeah, man. Because like now, just thinking back, because like it was the infamous sex tape of Pamela Anderson. It was one of the members of Motley Crue. It was affiliated in it. I think it was the lead singer, if I'm not mistaken. But
So Vince
yeah,
Neil,
man.
Vince Neil's the lead singer, and Nikki Sixx is the bassist and the founder of the band. And then there's the guitarist Mick Mars and the drummer Tommy Gunn.
I think it might have been Tommy Gunn. If like
Yeah.
you can correct me, you can fact check me on that one.
Because yeah, Machine Gun Kelly plays Tommy Gunn in the Dirt movie on Netflix, and definitely worth a watch.
I'll
But
definitely give it a watch because I saw like Machine Gun Kelly is now involved in some Western filmy shots of late. Like I haven't really looked into that.
but you know, music in itself has come a long way in the last century, man. Like if you
Absolutely.
go back to 1920, back in the day when they had these what were they called, 33 and a third RPM LPs, the vinyls essentially. I mean, yeah, like I even still am a bit of a sucker for vinyls, man. Like,
I don't know if it's just me, but like vinyl has like a different type of like sound to it that is just unbeatable by any form of audio or CD or cassette tape. But if you look about it, the evolution of music, if you look back, you know, we start, like you said, on the vinyls, the cassette tapes and CDs. And I think actually it was in the year 2014, which digital versions of music like streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music, and so forth actually made more revenue in 2014 than CDs for the first time in history, which I think is an amazing turning point in music because I can honestly never imagine music again that is not digital. Like to think back about 10, 15 years ago when you wanted like a song or you liked a song, you had to go buy the entire album, which now we are so spoiled for choice, which we could just listen to any song whenever we want. It's crazy to think about, you know?
yeah.
Like where will music take us in the next 20 years? Who knows?
Well, I mean, like I'll show you here. Like this is just a band that I'm following because like I'm a day one fan. They're called the Blue Stones. This is their debut album. I'll show the camera there, but that's Black
It's because
Hole.
they're an astronaut on the cover.
Yeah, it's like an astronaut in deep space.
That's dope. Can you flip it? Oh, that is so cool, man. It's like, it's so retro. I love it.
And then like they have, I don't have, that's their first album, and this is like an EP that they released, the Live on Display album. And basically I don't have the actual album that stemmed off of this EP on me right now. It's called, they called it Spirit. And yeah, that was a really defining moment for that band, in my opinion. But like little bands, you know, guys I like to support. But then there's like my ride or dies, and the first vinyl I ever bought was El Camino by the Black Keys.
Oh, the Black Keys. Yeah, I'm quite familiar with them.
This thing right here, man. Telling you, it changed my whole perspective on music. So like, yeah, what you were saying earlier about vinyl and about digitalizing music, if you took a vinyl, the actual sound quality is better because it's all analog. And then as you as you move over to a different platform, you're diluting the sound quality. So if you go from a vinyl to a cassette, and then from a cassette to a CD, and from a CD to a digital platform, you're diluting that sound every time you do that. So, but music, like nowadays, you pay. It's funny for me because you go and you pay for a streaming service, you pay $6 a month, and you have all this music that you can listen to, but you don't own that music. Like
Yeah, you don't owe it.
if you stop paying your bill, you would not have access to your library. That's what happened with Apple Music. There were so many
Yeah.
songs I couldn't move over in the time of transitioning from Apple to Spotify. And I just one day when my premium expired, I went back into the actual app, and all it's just a blank screen. So,
That's bad, man. Because I believe, like, even Spotify, which I believe is a very cruel thing to do, is like ads with the free one. Yes, you don't lose your music ever, even if if you didn't pay your account. But dude, those ads, man, which is a nice tip if you're like a cheap guy like me, if you don't want to spend too much money, it is quicker to exit Spotify and go back in than it is to listen to the ad.
Well, that's the other thing, man. There's this massive feud between Apple Music and Spotify, because Spotify in the US has, roughly the same amount of listeners as Apple Music does in the US. But the reason why,
Really?
the reason why you'd have Apple Music competing with Spotify is because Spotify has the free option, whereas we just said you can ads and get 30 minutes of uninterrupted music.
Listening, oh my soul. I probably hear that about like a dozen times every day.
If you love Spotify, you'll love Spotify Live. So, whereas, Apple Music, you just have to pay right off the bat. But that's a scary thought to think about. Like back in the day, when the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, when you had to go and buy vinyl still if you wanted to listen to an album, you owned that music. Like it was yours. You could have it and take it with you, and that's that. As long as you had a vinyl player to play it on. Nowadays, you could realistically wake up and these databases could be wiped. There could be a solar flare and all the
absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, it doesn't even have to go to such an extent. I mean, we can look in the last, I think, year or so, there's been a couple times which Spotify service has just completely been down for an entire day, I think, globally. And that is crazy because, like you said, like I don't have access to my music. I can't remember from memory what is in my playlist and like songs. I can remember a couple. So when I go to YouTube, for example, I can't remember what I need to stream. So it's a crazy thought pattern. The only way you can truly keep your music without paying is in sense if you are filthy, dirty pirates, which I believe we all have been to some extent, but still nothing truly beats Spotify or Apple Music, as you can say. But I absolutely agree with you in the terms of owning the physical copy to it, because I also have a friend that he buys everything physically still, games, music, movies, because he's of the opinion, what happens when the server, he has this conspiracy theory that all the streaming services will one day lapse, Netflix, Spotify, Steam, at least he has a reserve which you can play and listen to.
Well, so Apple Music, man, 15% of all users use Apple Music and 31% remains for Spotify. But you think about it, so an artist like Ed Sheeran, he has the most Spotify listeners of any other artist, and that's only 70 million. Okay, now bear with me on this. He wrote the album Divide about 5 years ago, which was like every song on that album made the top 10. Like it was a great album, it really was. And the most streams he got was for Shape of You, and that was 1 billion streams, which is a big deal. But if you think about it, like artists like Ed Sheeran and Machine Gun Kelly, they have the population of Australia is 25 million people. Machine Gun Kelly almost has all of Australia listening to him. Does that make sense? Like there's surely more people that could be listening.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it's a crazy thought to think about.
And the other thing was, I was talking to a band called Sly Withers here in Australia. I randomly bumped into the lead singer of the band. Like we went and saw them at a library here in our town, and afterwards they were selling merch, so we were buying merch off them. Got to do our part. And it turns out I was talking to the lead singer of the band. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So we started talking about Spotify and stuff and streams and everything. And these people only get paid half a cent or so for a stream. So you can look at 10 million, 20 million streamers. You're like, that's a lot of money they're making. It's really not, man. Like the other half of their income is either from endorsements, it's either from, sponsorships, whatever real estates and investments they've got going. Like someone like Jay-Z is not a billionaire because of his music. Same as Rihanna, they're not billionaires, and Kanye.
Music, yeah.
It's not because of music as such. It's because they have, Jay-Z has I know he's got champagne brands as such. Kanye West, he has Yeezys and all those things. Rihanna has ties with fashion as well. It's not music that gets these guys where they're at. It's actually asset allocation and where they put their money
Endorsements.
and endorsement. So it's interesting, man. But on that note, can you name a song or an artist or someone as such who completely flipped your taste in music for you, like who just got you over into a genre?
No, for me is, I think definitely I've been listening to them since I was in the 9th grade in 2015. Is for me is Bring Me the Horizon, which is essentially a very interesting form of, I don't know, metal. It's, in a sense, can be described of new metal, but something I particularly like. It's not essentially one artist that like stays with one genre, but I like artists that are adaptable to times and like in a sense adapt their genre, like a lot like Machine Gun Kelly. But bring it back to Bring Me the Horizon, I feel if you start listening to some of their earlier albums, it sounds a lot different to their latest albums because they adapt, they change with the times. And even like we spoke about Ed Sheeran now, what I also like about him, he's open to try new things. Because I mean, one of his greatest hit songs was Bad Habits. And now recently he released a version which was more of a, I wouldn't say metal, but more of a rock type vibe with Bring Me the Horizon. And that was just an awesome thing for me to hear. And the same with Machine Gun Kelly, as a younger person in school, I've always loved punk rock, listen to the classics, it's like Blink 182, Green Day, those emo vibes, and to see it making a new beginning or starting again now in present times is awesome for me. Not just Machine Gun Kelly doing it, but I think Travis Barker has actually come a long way in reviving this music genre, which I believe has been pretty much not as active as it used to be. And I think you've got so many other artists that like have dipped their toe in the waters that you can think of. JXDN is also a great artist I really enjoy, also part of the same record label. And it's crazy. I mean, Ian Dior, even he also features some Machine Gun Kelly and type songs like that. I love Youngblood as well, like at the moment, also really great artist for me. But yeah, man, so I definitely, to answer your question in a summarized version, I'd say it's not particularly listening to an artist that got me into a genre, but it's more getting into an artist that tries out different genres and has shown success over a long period of time.
Yeah, I can respect that, man. For me, who did that was Marilyn Manson. Like, I grew up in a very conservative Christian household, and I watched the first John Wick movie and Killing Strangers by Marilyn Manson, who just released his Pale Emperor album, that song was featured on. That was playing, and I was like, this is badass. Like, it's got a really...
It's badass.
Because Eminem was usually like my go-to. Like, I liked rap. I liked how meaningful his music was. I like how uplifting his rap was. Like before he released his newer work where he was essentially dissing the rap industry. I really liked his work up till about Recovery, I think. And before that, yeah, I was just listening to whatever was played in the car. But Marilyn Manson, to go and listen to someone who illustrated thoughts and words and anger or pain or love in so many different sort of ways, but still having that controversial, satanic vibe that he gave off.
Satanic vibe.
Yeah, man, that's what got me in a lot of trouble with family. I had to essentially do his music with my headphones on. I couldn't play it in the car. I'd get my ass handed to me. So his music really and he has changed up his vibe a lot too. So he's nowhere near as controversial as he was 20 years ago. because one of the
Yes.
main things that
If you look
drove,
at, for example, like at the Beautiful People music video, as a
yeah,
child, when I saw that, it gave me freaking nightmares. But now, as I became a teenager and started university, I've been such a big fan of Manson. Now I watch that video continuously, and it's just like awesome to me. So
yeah,
I don't know if it's maybe like an age thing or something, maybe you like mature into it, but definitely for me, like bands like that, I feel that have kept their controversy as bands like, for example, like Slipknot, etc., which I've also like. I grew up in a conservative household as a child, so if a Slipknot, Bullet for My Valentine, bands like that, I always listen to them on my earphones. You're like, you can't let your family find out because I think you're an absolute degenerate, which is
yeah.
such a stupid assumption or analogy people reach. Because like, yes, I do understand like music has been proven scientifically to alter your perception of the way you perhaps see life and things, but like I definitely think that no music can really motivate you in such a violent manner that you would do something that is out of character. You get what I'm saying? So
Well,
that's why I still listen to Slipknot. I still listen to metal. I love it, man. And
mm,
honestly, I'm a pretty normal guy, I'd say. And you too, man. So I
like
don't get like what the stigma is about around it.
like even with Marilyn Manson, man, like his styles that he introduced to me. So his, his most recent album that's come out 2 3 years ago, he actually blends in a little with acoustics, so he's relaxed
Mm.
somewhat. He still has his hardcore guitar riffs and things that sort of just illustrate. And his I think Marilyn Manson was like a really good screamer. Like he could really scream into a microphone, but not so that it's overwhelming, and then he'd croak his
Mm.
voice at the end. I could just I felt it. But because of Marilyn Manson, man, like, yeah, I found myself listening to more metal as well. Like, I never really delved into Slipknot, or Metallica as such, but bands
Mm.
like another controversial band, Rage Against the Machine. Like,
Oh.
I never knew this, but I listened to a song on my Apple Music at the time, and I had this new playlist that came out every Friday. I look so forward to it. And the song came out. It was called Devil's Infantry by Tom Morello and the Bloody Beetroots. So I listened to it and I loved it. Like, okay, cool. So this Tom Morello guy brought some more music out. He brought a couple of albums out after that. I'm like, Tom Morello, and he made a song with Bring Me the Horizon called Let's Get This Party Started. And
Yes, I know. It's like a red
it's
album. Like the cover is like red, right?
yeah, and it just blew my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, I'm quite aware.
So I
Let's
thought,
get this
okay,
part. Yeah.
okay, who's Tom Morello? So I go ahead and I Google Tom Morello one day at work. Tom Morello used to be the guitarist for Rage Against the Machine. And
But I didn't know that.
I thought to myself, what the hell? Like it's like, have you ever listened to a song that you don't recognize? So you pull out your Shazam on your phone and you go ahead and Shazam, but you're definitely bopping to it. And then you go and get the name off it, and it's a band you already listened to, and it's a band you
Yeah.
absolutely love. And you're like, it's like I'm biologically hardwired to like all band releases. Like, I was sitting in
Yeah.
a barbershop in Bali one day, and I was waiting for get a haircut, and this one song was playing on the radio, and I'm like, yeah, this slaps. Like, I really like this song. So I got my Shazam out, and it was a song by the Black Keys that on their album
Yeah.
Thick Freakness, which I haven't heard before. So I'm like, yeah, it's like, no matter what happens, I'll probably like whatever they put out, no matter if I don't know what it is or not. So that happened to me, and that's probably what the case was of Tom Morello and this other gentleman from Rage Against the Machine, man. But yeah, so we've definitely covered a lot of topics just now. We've just gone through Machine Gun Kelly. We've gone through the evolution of music. I always bring up this one quote from Freddie Mercury when he was on stage. He said, like, back then they were living in the golden age of music. Like, in the future, people will depend on technology to make music for them. And he could not have been more right. Like, you don't
Yes.
need to waste
You
your time.
didn't have things like auto tune and things like that back in the day.
No, you don't. You don't need to.
That's all Mercury.
You don't need to waste your time listening to guitar tutorials to learn to play a guitar or the drums or whatever. You could go onto your.
And like, for example, I also believe I think Frank Sinatra, Jimi Hendrix himself, they cannot read music
Yeah,
at all. Like Jimi
not.
Hendrix, he taught himself to
The
play the
Beatles.
guitar.
The
That's
Beatles
a
couldn't
crazy.
read
The
music.
Beatles as well. They can also officially read music, right?
No,
Yeah,
none. So
and that's probably one of the most. All of them are probably one of the most iconic, talented like musicians like in history of all time. We still talk about them presently. You can go to anyone on the street, they know who John Lennon is, they know who Freddie Mercury is, they know who Jimi Hendrix is. But also, that's just a random thought I'm thinking about now. It popped into my head. Like a band which I also particularly love is Guns N' Roses, and probably like one of their most iconic songs is what Into the Jungle. And you know that iconic quote he says in the beginning, like, "You're in the jungle, baby." Did you know where he got that? It was actually a homeless man in New York that shouted at Axl Rose while he was walking down the street. And he thought to himself, I can use this in a song.
yeah, yeah. I like that idea, man. You're always learning and taking things from your environment as an artist, I think. Like, on that note though, like, can you name an artist, or can you suggest an artist that only you think exists? Like, can you name someone you definitely can say most people won't know, but like their music is unbelievable? Like, it can be someone from 10, 20 years ago. It can be someone that just popped onto the scene. Like, who is an artist or a musician or a band or a group that'll just rock anyone's world?
Okay, so particular artists, I think, which I found actually, you know where I find my artists? Like, it's weird, like, Google, like, they like track you a lot. And they're like, if you like Google something now, you can probably find an ad for it in like minutes later when you go into Facebook, Instagram. Which I use a lot of Spotify, and I usually track down a lot of artists, on my Instagram stories. Like, in between, you get these ads, and a lot of times, like, I'll listen to it, and this could be like a new artist like on the block, and be like, damn, this shit slaps. I'll go listen to a lot of their music. For example, like an artist, like, I love indie music and stuff like that. But like, for me, this new artist, I don't know if it's particularly that new. It's, if you remember the artist Hot Milk, it's a very weird name, but they've got these interesting songs. It's particularly like the one I'd recommend our listeners to listen to is Glass Spiders. Like, I just love it, man, because like, it's so emotional in a sense, tied in for me, and it's just awesome songs. They got so much great music. I think it's actually two people. It's like a group, but I definitely highly recommend people try it, because I'm not sure like many people know about them. Hot Milk, man. Like, it's something to give a listen to, man, if you're like into that emotional type, emo-y type vibes, like, okay. If you're inside are a emo girl, if you get the reference, you'll love it.
All right. Well, for me, if I were to recommend an artist that I can without a doubt say no one on earth probably knows exists, it's also a strange name, so bear with me. It's called, there's a group of them. They're called Caught a Ghost.
Caught a Ghost. Okay.
Caught a Ghost. And Caught a Ghost have a couple of really emotional songs for me. One of them was called Time Go. The band is like it's indie alternative jazz sort of vibe, so it's got that noir sort of feel. And yeah, this Time Go song, and every song on the album is so different from the previous. Like, this Time Go song is a really emotional song about like, where does the time go? Like, oh man, you close your eyes and it's been 10 years or so. Like they moved, the days are moving underneath me. It's crazy how he puts it. But then another song is called You, like the letter U, and he's singing about how crazy he's about this girl. And another song he sings about human nature. It's so
very diverse, man.
Yeah, so but it all has that, I'd say, monotone feel. Like, you can tell it's the same artist singing all these songs. They just illustrate different points. Yeah.
And I think that is probably one of the best traits, like, I think any musician could have, it's just showing diversity in a sense of your music, each song being different to the other. Because I think a lot of the times, not only artists, but I think most creative people, if they perhaps find a funk or something they find people think they're enjoyable, they usually stick to that same recipe. But I love an artist that has the nerve, and the confidence to go out there and, try something new. Because I think that's how you evolve as an artist, because you don't get dated ever. You're always up with the times. That's how you get like artists that are going on for 20, 30, 40 years, and they're still going strong, and them because they are adaptable to the times.
Well, on that note, then, what is a song or a group or something like that you can recommend to me and to those listening or watching?
That's a big question, man. Okay, the artist I definitely would recommend is also, I think, someone that not many people know about. His name is Spaceman Zach. It's like very interesting, like music. I think you can try out. You know, it's also that very nuanced sense of style. Great new upcoming artist. I definitely think, you know, give him a shout, give him a listen, man. I think you might like him. It's good stuff. How about you, man? What can you offer me?
All right, drum roll, please. The last song I'm going to recommend to you and our listeners or viewers, for that matter, is a song I randomly found when I was just having my little music running in the background. It is called Black Nova by Eve 6. And if you're up for a little, you know, get me up music, a little upbeat sort of vibe, definitely, man. One of the lyrics that are like such a mood for me is where he goes, ask for a Corona in the ambulance. So I'm like, yeah, man. You're like literally caught in an ambulance, like, can I have a beer?
I can't think that we could conclude on any better note than that lyric.
All
and
right,
ironically,
man.
we said
Episode
notes.
1's out the way. Oh.
Let's go!
All right, guys. So on that bombshell, next week, we will be back in studio and we'll be talking about movies as the second part of our media journey this season. So hopefully you'll have your little scripts and notepads ready and we'll have cameras rolling, Brendan, because it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. See you guys then next week. Always a pleasure, my fellow co-host, Llewellyn.
10-4, Commodore.